Okay, can someone go and start to collect cards of people who have written their questions on cards? And now we can start hearing from the people who are in the line here.
Okay, I'm Carrie, and the reason I'm wearing sunglasses is because my eyes have been affected by the EMFs. I've been hypersensitive ever since I got Lyme disease. A lot of people who have Lyme and other chronic illnesses have been affected adversely. I can barely see any bright lights. And the thing that came to me during the presentation was, isn't it true that the elites want to preserve any natural environment and all the plants and animals out in, they're not deploying these things except in the cities. They want the animals and the plants to survive, but we can go. We're not needed, you know? And so we need to approach things from an environmental protective point of view, and Santa Cruz has always been environmentally ahead of its time and protecting our bees, our butterflies, anything. In fact, we were the first city that I know of that had a no radiation. We are radiation free, you know, and what happened to that? Why aren't we standing up for our environment too? And the butterflies will be affected. The bees are already affected, and I'm affected, and a lot of other people don't even know they're affected. So please write letters, show up, and do what Rima said. Call that guy. Call him and tell him off.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Tom Davis. I run a small business in Santa Cruz, and I've been here for 35 years, and I want to thank the presenters and organizers of this event. It is, I mean, I thought I was well informed, and my eyes have been opened. I really appreciate what you are doing and all your hard work. Thank you. But I did want to ask, how many people in this room own smartphones and use smartphones?
No cell phone here.
Not that? Okay. And how many of you use Wi-Fi? Almost everybody. I've been tempted to. I have a flip phone from 5 years ago that was given to me, but my wife and I have been, thanks to her, have been wireless free in our home ever since. We have all wired devices. I'm working towards that in my business, but I think, you know, in the end, we can raise a stink, and short of actual revolt and civil resistance, if we vote with our dollars and our actions, we get action. And if we are using these things and we want to benefit from this technology, we are asking it to come into our communities. I know that's a tough uphill battle, and you know, we all love that convenience and what that access gives us, but we are playing right into their hands.
Okay, we would prefer that people come up here to ask questions. If you need to make a statement, if you can just keep it very short, don't let it turn into a speech, please. Okay, so that wasn't really a question. Here's a question.
Can't hear you.
You've been talking about Santa Cruz. Do you have information about Scotts Valley? We want to start educating the public. Is there anybody who knows something about Scotts Valley? Okay.
So my friend Satya here came over to my house and measured all my appliances and electricity in the walls, and since then I decided to turn off my electricity at night. And I just wanted to share that if you freeze those square gallons of water in your freezer, I don't use a lot of frozen food, so in my freezer is a lot of gallons of frozen water. I stick them in the refrigerator at night, and I can turn my refrigerator off, and I have a temperature gauge, and it's the same in the morning, the freezer and the fridge. And I'll tell you, I have been sleeping a lot better. I noticed that when my neighbor, actually I didn't notice that he sold his house, and I started to have sleeping problems. And it was a few months later I realized, oh my God, there's a smart meter, and it's really close to my bedroom. I'm curious about using the Freedom of Information Act for, I keep hearing people say we can't get. There's a lovely local woman who works for the Associated Press, and there's been a lot of amazing changes and things like the slave fishery and just lead in kids' lunch pails, but it was all done through the Freedom of Information Act, and I feel like we really need to educate ourselves about that and use that system I feel like we need to dig deep into the money of why is our city council and electives falling for this stuff, are they getting money, or, I think we could use the Freedom of Information Act even for our own government to find out what, who's rubbing whose back and that kind of thing. Anyway.
What I can tell you about scientific research, they've actually done studies to see if the funding of studies on electromagnetic health effects is supported by the industry. 2/3 of the time they show no or positive effects. And when it's done by independent researchers that aren't affiliated or get funding from the government, 2/3 of the time it's actually showing detrimental effects. So there is a real publishing bias and funding bias. And I don't know how it works with city council, but I hear a lot of comments, and we certainly have to get the right people in place who are sensitive to that.
What is your take on 5G being used in the healthcare industry?
Well, if you go to hospitals now, hospitals are getting more and more automated. Every doctor runs around with an iPad or something like that, which are wirelessly connected. All the different devices in the hospitals are already wirelessly connected. It's not a healthy place to live. And we all, nobody wants to go to the hospital, but we also know that hospital infections, can happen. And, there is studies that actually show there's greater virulence among bacteria when they're exposed to all of this. And we're seeing a real problem now, not just with antibiotic resistance and so on, but we're also seeing much greater diseases starting to come, and much more virulent diseases. And, MRSA, like methicillin-resistant staphylococcus, outbreaks. We're running out of antibiotics to deal with things. I don't personally prescribe them, but, this is part of the problem in the hospital. So 5G is just the next evolution that's just going to accelerate that. And I think it's going to make hospitals more toxic, personally. Yeah.
I have an addition to what Dr. Maret just said. There was a news item on why doctors hate their computers. I don't know if any of you saw that out there. So the rate of depression amongst physicians is going way up, and the number of suicides is closely paralleling that rise.
Yeah. And it isn't just bacteria, as somebody said, it's also mold. We're having real mold problems as well. So we're affecting the ecosystem, not just global warming, but we're having so much radiation now that it's changing all life forms. You have to remember the body at a fundamental level works on chi, on life energy. We've basically got rid of vitality. I'm going in a week to China to talk to them about what chi is from a Western perspective. And basically your body works on light. It works on biophotons at the cellular level. The body is a quantum physical miracle. It works tremendously with electricity at cellular levels. And so that's a whole course we could talk about why this technology, which is what Rudolf Steiner used to call decayed light, light that isn't spiritual light anymore, it's electromagnetic light. And it interacts with the body. It can be used for good and for bad. And right now it's just blanketing us, and I think that is bad. Yeah.
Nicely said. I'm Terry Maxwell, and I care about the good guys and girls winning on this planet and elsewhere. And you know, the good guys and girls are people like the good doctor here, people of goodwill, who aren't utilizing, if you will, the technology he's an expert in to just grasp more money and satisfy greater and greater greed, like I saw the telecommunications industry executives do in Washington decades ago. The tragedy is our government is bought and corrupted because our political leaders are too often bought and corrupted. And one example is even in this county among the supervisors. They know that Maryland is totally correct. They've known it for a decade or longer. I've had them acknowledge it to me privately. They don't care. I suspect they're getting money, direct or indirect bribes. Again, they're corrupt cowards. Personally, I pay the $10 a month for the Soquel Creek Water Board and PG&E to come and read my meter. Okay, where I live, rather than, maybe that's, frankly, I shouldn't have to pay the $10. None of us should have to. That should be, if we had county council, if we had county supervisors with spine and courage and integrity, we would stand up to this, and like Fairfax, California has done, in Marin County, it's not there. For 12, 15 years, they have outlawed wireless, and they've outlawed the companies. Why can't we do that here in Santa Cruz? Take back our county.
I wanted to answer the question, whoever asked about the Scotts Valley, are they still here? Okay, good. We're not working just with Santa Cruz, we're working with the entire area. I live up in Felton, so we're working with the whole area. Scotts Valley doesn't have its own city council, unlike many other of those towns. So I would advise you get in touch with the council and find out, you know, what their take is and what they're planning on doing. They're going to have their plans. I mean, they're very organized up there. And you can also contact the group. You know, we're up there. Satya and I are up in that area. We can work with you. Okay?
I think what we really need is a community awakening where we have lawyers and politicians and lay people and the public all working together. This is a group effort on behalf of all of us, and the healthcare providers especially need to be educated. And if any of you want to contact me, my email is M-A-R-E-T, my last name, Maret at Cruzio. I'll be happy to send you information packs that you can educate your physician or your chiropractor or whoever about.
Hi, my name is Joanne, and it seems that the source of a lot of our problems, why the FCC thinks they can come into our neighborhoods and put weapons of mass destruction next to our homes, is because of that telecommunications 1996 ruling. Why aren't the lawyers after this ruling? There is no way to get out of this unless we leave the planet or dig ourselves way below the earth to survive. So why isn't there a movement to stop this, to eradicate this ruling?
Well, there's this question about why haven't people awoken yet to the challenges that we face. I could answer that in two ways. One of them, these devices, and we've known this since the 70s and 80s, these devices, including your smartphone, and especially since the smartphone came in, are highly addictive. They increase opiate and dopamine systems in the brain, and, you know, kids, when you try to get the phone away from them, they will go totally ballistic and want to fight you, you know, for their devices. And so part of it is a physiological reaction to that, because we've been told that we can't live without this. And in certain places where you go now on meditation retreats or whatever, they take your phones away for a while. A friend of mine, is a colleague, is a psychiatrist in LA. She has kids showing up with all kinds of psychiatric symptoms, and one of the things she recognized is if you give 1 month away from the digital devices, a total fast from the digital devices, a lot of the symptoms normalize without medication. So, you know, you have to start taking this seriously. So then the question is, when will you awaken enough to take political or economic or whatever, legal action, you know?
With 3G, 4G, we all have internet if we want it. That's enough.
it should be enough, but, you know, everything that I've learned, and I grew up in Germany and then in Canada. I'm actually a Canadian citizen. What I've learned in America is, you know, the more you can sell, the more successful you are, you know, and so it's a big economic incentive to keep putting out the next model of iPhone and whatever. So it's really up to people to say, this is enough. I can function with this quite well. I don't need more. But now they want to have autonomous car, virtual reality, everybody living in their little isolated, digitally enhanced environment. And I think that goes against why we've incarnated, why we're on the planet. You know, you won't need this when you leave.
The other thing is with radiation, smaller, thinner skulls, radiation penetrates deeper and faster. So the sad thing is we're going to see our kids, grandkids, and cats and dogs develop the brain tumors, the thyroid tumors, before we end up with it.
And there are studies that show animals that live like mice in antenna farms. There's a study in Greece that's well quoted, and they showed after 3 generations the mice were sterile. And this is also sometimes called the Pottinger effect. You can read a book called The Pottinger Effect, because Pottinger and Bryce, anyway, the dentist, they worked together, and they fed cats pasteurized milk and cooked meat, and after 3 generations they were sterile. And it took 3 generations for the ones that weren't sterile before they became normal again. So this is what you're facing as a society. I'm really concerned about a decreased fertility rate and everything else in this country. You know, this is really starting to be recognized.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Hulsh, live in Scotts Valley. I learned a lot tonight. I can't thank these guys enough for what they've done. I feel like I'd like to influence a lot of people, have them experience what I experienced tonight. Do any of you feel like that? And it's wonderful you've got CDs out there and pieces of paper. However, and this is not a question you have to answer, but would you consider taking what you videotaped or what you can re-videotape, take your wonderful slideshow, your presentation, and put this on YouTube so we can all have a link, because we know how that works. Tonight, if we had that link, what will we do? And you know how it works geometrically. So I want to ask, and you don't have to answer, if you guys would consider putting some editing together. And I know maybe you do 2 parts, but at least one finite piece that's tight, that's strong, that we could send to people here and in other states, because this is how it starts.
Exactly. And make it 5 minutes, because nobody has an attention.
5 minutes. 5 minutes, and if you want to know more, because that's the trick, 5 minutes, go to this other site you've got, which has the long story. So thanks again, and please consider this.
Okay.
Thank you.
The video of this event will be edited and up on YouTube within 3 or 4 days. And if you go to our Facebook group, if you use Facebook, it's EMF aware - Santa Cruz County. That's our only web presence at the moment. In the future, hopefully, as the support grows, we will have a dedicated website. But in any case, if you go to the Facebook page, there will be information about the link to that YouTube video. Or you could just go and search on YouTube for EMF Aware Santa Cruz and the date, which is November 30th, and that video should come right up. Thank you.
My name's Olivia. That gives me goosebumps. I'm really excited. I'm delighted that you all have done this. I've felt the symptoms of frequencies for years, and I wore a nanovibe for years. And then I recently came in contact with some people who have created something called an Intrinity Plus, and they sell it through newphoenixrising.com. When I took off my nanovibe and put this on, I was shocked at how differently I felt. It was an immediate sense of calm, which is similar to what I felt when I was wearing my nanovibe for the first time. So I do turn off my phone at night, and I don't have Wi-Fi in my home, and whenever I go someplace else where it's there, I can hardly sleep, but with something like this on, it makes a huge difference. So thank you all hugely for this, and I really hope that you can do that 5-minute video, because I do think this could go viral, even though I don't like those aspects, but I think it could be great. Thank you.
You know, these kind of devices, whether you put them on your phone or you wear them, they do work. They're very hard to study scientifically because there's always this thing called the placebo effect, right? That you just believe that it is. But modern science also doesn't recognize that you have an energy field around your body called the biofield. And that biofield, anything you introduce into it, whether we saw that one demonstration of the man standing on his foot and something, stabilizes that field. You know, that's how dowsing works. Dowsing is used by the oil industry, it's used by the water industry to find water veins. We are the most sensitive detectors for everything, because everything we invent is basically electromagnetic technology. Every piece of equipment we have works on electromagnetic interaction. But our body is much more sensitive than most. That's why we can emit energy when we heal with our hands. That's why we can perceive things at a distance. That's why we can have a magnetic sense with all the different hematite crystals in our brain. So the human being is a marvel of spiritual capacity and spiritual perception. And yes, you bring the right things in it with the right intention, you can really heal yourself. That's very important.
Thanks so much for everything tonight. My name's Satya, and I also have one of these pendants, which I'm extremely electrosensitive, and this makes so much difference for me. I feel like it harmonizes my body with what's going on. It doesn't make it so I can't, you know, I'm not electrosensitive anymore, but it makes such a difference. So I can't remember what it was called, but the person that was just speaking, it's the same. Trinity, yeah. Yeah, it's I can't remember where you get it from, but you can talk about it.
And in my experience, what works for one person doesn't necessarily always work for the next person.
This is true, yeah.
So you really have to test it out to see if it gives you an effect.
Yeah, I've tested a bunch of different ones that did not work for me. I muscle tested them before I used them. So I just want to say, too, there's a lot that we have up on our Facebook page of many different videos, and there's a list of lots of great websites that you can check out. It's on the back table, so there's many, many resources. So, okay.
Marilyn Garrett, and yes, I have been, thank you, going to meetings, including school board meetings, since I retired from teaching in 2000. And I want to thank Dr. Karl Maret and the presenters tonight, and especially Bruce Tanner, who did so much work in putting this together and putting the videos up there, and I recommend you get the DVDs and CDs back there. And I think the major problem we have is we're living in a corporate state, a corporatocracy, where the corporations are ruling and dictating, and that does not go along with democracy. It's anti-democratic, and I think that's a basic problem. I do want to encourage everybody to speak out and do everything you can to protect our health regarding these devices. Like Dr. Maret said, some of them help some people. I often see it as filters on cigarettes. You've got to get rid of the cigarettes. You've got to get rid of the source. We've got to stop this onslaught. Personally, I don't have a cell phone, I don't have Wi-Fi, I don't want to give my money to these industries that are harming us and destroying the bees. One way you can speak out is attend the Board of Supervisors meetings. This flyer has the dates, and it is televised. The next one is the 4th of December and then the 11th, the last two for this year. But that way, what you say, what you've learned here, what you want to direct them to do to represent the public well-being will be heard by more than those just in the room. So I'll put these at the back table, and thank you to everyone tonight and for coming out and do what it says on that postcard. Call Miss Allen Dow. Thank you.
Thank you, Marilyn.
Okay, here's a question on a card. Because of his sworn duty to protect the safety of the citizens of Santa Cruz County, can we get the sheriff to use necessary force, which is his right, to block this this rollout? They say here the shot clock, but
it's an assault.
It is, and it's a violation of international law, and it's a violation of our natural rights. Shouldn't we be able to get the sheriff to respond? I don't have an answer to that. I've had dubious experiences with the sheriffs in Santa Cruz County to date. But,
well, I only remembered what happened when the smart meter rollout came along, and people wanted that stopped, you know, when they picketed where they were being distributed for. And the sheriff didn't exactly intercede on behalf of the people, so.
Thank you. My name is Becky Steinbrunner, and I also am very grateful for the hard work this group and the speakers have put on for tonight. I have a piece of information, then I have a question. The piece of information I have is that I got some money for my birthday, and I spent the exorbitant $150 that the Monterey Bay Economic Partnership charged to go to their State of the Region event today down in Seaside. And I wanted to go because I wanted to find out who was there and what they're up to. One of the breakout sessions I was not able to go to was entitled Aiming Higher in Broadband Coverage and Access. It was moderated by Mr. Steve Bloom, president of TELUS Venture Associates, and the contributors were Zach Friend and Renee Mendez, the city manager of the city of Gonzales, and happens to be the vice president of Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, which I really encourage you to look into. It's a group of developers and bankers, and they are setting the policy for this region. They, in fact, wrote the recently adopted very dense zoning changes for Santa Cruz County that were adopted by the Board of Supervisors last week. So let me read to you what they talked about. Monterey Bay Economic Partnership and the Central Coast Broadband Consortium, this is another group they formed, have joined together and assembled a broadband leadership team which has researched user needs and has established a new regional broadband standard of 100 Mbps. I don't know what that means. Thank you. Download and 20 megabytes per second upload speeds. The question is, how do we get to full coverage in the region? Join this working session to help determine how we implement this new standard to make high-speed broadband a reality for all of our residents. So I really wish I could have gone to that. I went to Water and Housing instead. But if any of you know anybody that might have gone to that, I asked, they were not going to videotape any of the breakout sessions, but they will put up a statement of recap on the website. So that's what is afoot. And I have a question, and I want to thank you. It's difficult to go to these Board of Supervisor meetings because of where they are. There's the EMF is really awful in those. What are some simple things that people can do who are sensitive to sort of arm themselves or at least protect themselves a little bit before they go to one of these meetings so that you're not foggy-brained and apt to be told to just shut up and sit down? Thank you.
Well, that's a question that often comes up. It sounds, if you are electrically hypersensitive, which it sounds like you may be, Becky, and many people in this audience might be, the only thing that I found over time that people can do is they usually have chemicals or heavy metals in their body, and they ultimately have to get rid of them. I mean, when you understand that nowadays in journals of pediatrics, they take blood from cord blood from babies and see how many chemicals there are, and there's over 280 chemicals feeding the baby already from the mother in various concentrations, and they may not all be bad, but the fact that they're in there means that we all have chemicals in our body, and the people who are electrically most sensitive, because chemicals vibrate in the same way as you know, the elements in distant star in the starlight, we can pick it up with spectroscopes. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to tell you that there's iron on Mars or whatever. These are vibrating, and the electromagnetics also vibrate. And if there's a resonance there, then people get sick. So what can you do in the short term? In the short term is you have to be really well rested. You have to really have strong adrenals. You know, these adrenal glands help us deal with stress, and a lot of people are really fatigued from the constant onslaught, from the chemicals and the foods, on and on. You certainly, you can get all kinds of protective clothing nowadays. Less EMF is a website, and other ones where you can actually buy things that are kind of like the material we were shown earlier that block radiation. But, you know, I mean, we don't want to get to that level if we can. I mean, there are people who are so hypersensitive they have to put on a whole outfit that looks like a beekeeper's outfit that's electrically shielding, but you don't want to show up in a supervisor's meeting because you immediately, you know, you're immediately called a crackpot or, you know, a tinfoil hat person. So in the short term, you can limit your exposure. You know, if you're there to be longer, then you may get a deficit. I have people who are electrically hypersensitive. After they've gone, they need 2 or 3 days rest before they can even come back, and it usually means their adrenals. So supporting your body, drinking lots of water so you get rid of the materials in your body, these are helpful. In the long term, I would suggest that people are electrically sensitive, we neutralize them with various homeopathics, and I can talk to you personally what might be helpful.
I just wanted to add that I've recently heard that there are several companies that are bringing to market clothing that is designed to protect you from radiation and to look chic.
Yeah.
Hi. I've been aware that I'm electrically sensitive for about 10 years now, and when I first became sensitive, I had really extreme exposure. And I mean, I went into a Wi-Fi cafe and I would get heated and flushed immediately. I had a really hard time with my life. The things I found that helped me, I mean, detoxing for sure has been a big help, but I did make like my own little Faraday cage bed shielding out of material I bought from a company, lessemf.com. But getting earthed, which Marquita spoke about, sitting on the earth, it just helps to neutralize, because, you know, the energy makes an equilibrium. You know, it wants that. So if you have a high charge and you sit on the earth, you're going to have that charge go into the earth, and, you know, you'll get the negative ions from the earth. And I find that is one of my key things today that I do, is just I make sure I wear shoes that have leather soles, things of that nature, just to get that contact. And I really think that's important to do too.
Yeah, that's a really good point. what we know pretty definitively is that all the electromagnetic radiation causes free radicals. Free radicals aren't things from campus in the 60s. These free radicals are unpaired electrons. Okay, unpaired electrons basically seek to partner up with another electron to stabilize them as an electron pair. So they grab at all the membranes in your body. That's called lipid peroxidation, or it's, basically causes you to rust. And when you walk on the earth, when you're grounded, whether you do it in leather shoes or they have shoes now called plugs that actually have a conductive plug in them so you can stay grounded while you walk in your shoes. When you do that, you suck up electrons out of the earth. And these are extra electrons, and those will then neutralize the free radicals. So that's a really important thing. And it's the same thing you can do when you fly overseas. You can be grounded when you land from the airplane, and get yourself into the time zone and work on the earth, and then you start neutralizing this free radical damage, which causes DNA damage and so on.
Just walk in barefoot into the meeting.
Yeah.
Put your hands on either side of a large tree and stand there as long as you can with your face toward the sun. It will do amazing things to just recalibrate. And as Dr. Anthony said, the magnesium. And several things.
Like a tree, not a cell tower.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, it's 5 to 10. I'll be happy to stick around, but we should probably wrap it up in the next few minutes, right?
I bought a grounding sheet you can put in your bed. It's $150. And I'm not sure I should use it. I've used it and I could fall asleep much better. But some people have said that all the ambient frequencies around you will ground through you. What you do is there's this one prong, it's metal in this sheet. It's kind of like for the foot of your bed. And this one prong goes into your grounding socket. And I'm just not sure if I'm grounding all the microwaves through me.
Well, the biggest problem with the grounding systems, grounding was there if there was a short in the hot or the neutral, that it would send that signal to ground and not electrocute you. That was the purpose behind it. But there is so much now digital noise riding on top of the power lines. That's called dirty electricity, and that's also on the ground line. So, you need a really heavy, copper bar, and then you need to put it deep into the ground, and the ground needs to be wet, which it is now, but it wasn't all summer. So, therefore, even the grounding in your house is often not very efficient. And I've had problems with that too. The idea is really good. Usually you have a wire you can run through the window into an 8-foot copper rod you can hammer into the ground, and then you have a real ground earth. But, and that may be more helpful than the third wire ground on your outlet.
What about grounding the ambient frequencies through you, like the microwaves in your room? Will they go through you to ground?
Well, microwaves typically travel over the surface of the body. They don't necessarily penetrate all the way in. They can go into you, they can go around you through the field, or they can get over the surface of you. So, yes, it's a really complicated thing electrically speaking, and we always want simple solutions. The basic idea is, go ground yourself on the earth, go barefoot, all those things are good. Whether or not sleeping with it all the time works for everybody. There are studies that show that sleeping grounded on sheets has helped a lot of people. But, everybody has to experiment, I think.
Hello everyone. I just want to say thank you for such a wonderful presentation. And I work with stones and minerals. There is a crystal. It's called shungite, and it's a Russian mineral, 2-billion-year-old Russian mineral, and it's very protective of the energy from the shungite. And it's been very effective when I carry it and keep it on me. I feel much more uplifted, lighter. I'm an extreme sensitive. I spend most of my time in Big Sur away from cell phone towers because I can't really be around major cities much anymore, so I'm real sensitive to it. But the shungite has been very effective, and it's also helps you protect you from evil and other things too. So it's a wonderful stone. So maybe they should wear it as well. But anyway, I just want to say thank you. I live in Monterey, and we're fighting the battle there. There's 36 towers planned for Monterey County, and they're pretty much we're doing our best down there, but it's been kind of a downhill fight. Yeah, Nina Beatty is very active down there, I think, right, trying to stop it. She's electrically sensitive. Shungite is a carbon-based material, comes from a certain region in Russia. I have some of that around. You can put other things in to sort of balance the energy, and I can talk to you privately about that, but you can also put shungite into water, and it structures water. And because it's a carbon-based substance, it's like powder charcoal, it's very safe. So you can drink water that's structured by shungite, and that might also help.
Yeah, high quality shungite is actually about 80% fullerenes or buckyballs. There's 60 atom molecules, carbon molecules. I actually saw a YouTube video where they put an EMF meter up by a man's body, and they got a reading off of his body, and then they gave him a piece of shungite to hold, and the reading on the meter went down to almost zero.
Wow. No, I haven't seen that, but these buckyballs, these are C60. They look like a geodesic. They're named after Buckminster Fuller, so they're called fullerenes. And you can actually, if you want to let me know, I've just ordered some. They did experiments to find out what the lethal dose, which is called an LD50, how much you have to get before an animal dies, and that's used for toxicology studies. So they gave these fullerenes to these rats, and they wanted to see how much they took, and they actually lived twice as long as the other ones. And so I was just introduced to that actually by my friend Rahmat. So yeah, I'm just going to experiment with that, but I didn't know shungite had so many fullerenes, so that would make sense.
Hey, hi everybody, my name's Adrienne. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight. We're so amazed that we had such a great turnout, so thank you all for coming. And please tell your family and friends about this 5G stuff. Thank you to the Live Oak Grange and to the EMF Aware group for putting this together in such short notice. So remember that one city, they stopped it with 120 people writing in, so we had close to that many people here tonight, so let's get active and let's try to stop this thing. Thank you.
All right.